Hello, guys. Welcome back to episode 3. This week we got a jam-packed episode with a bunch of trades. We're focusing on defenses this week, and thinking about how, in light of the current situation with COVID-19, how that's going to change the upcoming NFL season. So, without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Jam-packed.
Okay, so the NFL season. So what do you think the NFL is actually going to do about the upcoming season? Because now that baseball is having a season without crowds, there's been outbreaks of coronavirus on a ton of the
Isn't there
teams.
like 17 people in the Marlins who are now sick with corona?
Like
The thing-
everyone's getting coronavirus from the MLB
let-
season. So
let me kick this off. The thing that I think football should do that baseball can't really do is because baseball has a game every day for every team almost. You can't really put them in one location like the NBA or the NHL, where like you're playing maybe like 2-3 times a week. Football, it's perfect because you play once a week, and instead of having it only on Sunday, you can disperse games throughout the week and play in one stadium and contain players in one hotel. I think that's what they should do. That way they're not like spreading it everywhere and getting susceptible to the virus. Like the NBA, they have the bubble. So I think if the NFL can pick like an area, like I don't know if Florida's the best option because that's what the NBA did because Florida's like doing terrible. But if they went to California because they have multiple stadiums there, like they're gonna have the Rams one. They can be in Las Vegas. They can be in San Francisco.
Las Vegas is in Nevada.
I know, but it's like same area. It's like 5 hours away.
And it's in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I didn't think about that at first, but now thinking about it, it sounds like a really good idea. Like the only potential drawbacks I could see to this is like unlike the NBA, where you just need like a basketball court compared to a football field. Like
It is a lot
how will teams be able to practice?
But it's also
Imagine how much open field space you would need.
I mean, but teams have facilities too, and if you take the team's professional field, their facilities, that's like 3 fields right there, and then you can just split them throughout times, and teams can practice together like they do in summer, in like not summer camp summer camp. They practice together. Like certain teams practice together. You can have teams pair up together.
I
I mean,
think
yeah,
a
but
big
I don't
issue
think
also.
what your understanding is that there's a great deal of support staff for professional football players.
Yeah.
Much more than basketball, definitely. I mean, like for one example, that a lot of equipment, it's not. I mean, even in the pros, they share some equipment. It's not all. It's not that sanitary,
Yeah, I mean, football is definitely a sport where you're gonna get people that are gonna get it, and like definitely there should be tests before every game and every practice. Like I know with certain things they have to get tested every 3 days and stuff. Definitely think that should happen. And we already have players opting out. Like Damian Williams just opted out like a couple minutes ago.
Defense.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know. I'm happy that they canceled preseason. That's a big step because that's 4 less games you have to worry about, and you get some time to maybe coronavirus will die down a bit by then. But honestly, like I don't think, especially with the expanded playoffs that the NFL's having now that there's 8 teams.
Yeah.
Or is it 8 teams? Yeah, I think that it wouldn't be too far-fetched to also have a shortened season.
Yeah.
I mean,
Which
they could also try and do something with the helmets because unlike baseball or basketball, they already have a face shield. So they could just cover it a tiny bit more.
yeah, but you're still hitting each other. It's still a major contact.
That's
sport,
true,
so-
but
I
there
don't
isn't
think
as
the
much
issue
air.
with corona is on the field contact. I don't think that's where people get scared. I think people get scared off the field when you're in the locker room together, when you're,
Just keep your helmet on in the locker room, honestly.
when if you're in the Rams, you're in the shower together. It's kind of.
Oh my god. Dimitri, that's just Tom Brady and his kids.
Oh my god.
That's real, bro.
Right.
Let's move on. Let's.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you just follow along with the precautions that the NBA bubble did, I think like everyone is tested and temperature has their temperature taken before practices and games. And I mean, as long as if no one else is infected, then and you're like staying quarantined, I don't think even with your team, if no one else is infected, then I think people will feel more safe.
I think instead, now that there's no preseason, they should take the 2 weeks out of that preseason that would have been preseason to just quarantine themselves for 2 weeks, and then go into like a certain hotel with all the football players, and then they'll be all set for the season. Like they could just stay there.
Yeah, we should.
Possibility for these players to fake corona tests?
How?
I don't know. You can fake a
Well,
steroid test, you can fake an alcohol test. I figure there's a way.
The thing I'm worried about. Well, first of all, the corona test. What I'm worried about is that they'll get tested and they'll come back positive, and a player, so they don't have to be out for 2 weeks, will just they'll say they have a different injury and that's why they're not playing, and they'll come back earlier than they should. Like they'll only miss 1 week instead of 2. Because if you think about it, the likeliness that a player will want to fake not having corona is because you have a very limited amount of games in a season, and you definitely don't want to miss 2 of them. That's what I'm worried about with the NFL.
Especially if you're a star player. If you're out for corona, you could be replaced.
That's why you should do it before the season, the quarantine.
Yeah,
But you can still get it during the season.
I know, but it lowers the chances extremely.
Yeah, and then you just have to mandate strict policies, like their past weed policy. I know is changing, but if you get caught for faking your results, then just even longer suspension. So,
I mean, what if they put 2-week breaks in between the games and made it an 8-game season?
Too much practice.
I can see that.
I think if you have 2 weeks to prepare for each game, I mean that's got to be. You can basically retailer your offense for each team. That's. I don't know. That seems a little much. I mean, it's safer, but I think it ruined part of the. I mean, it's not basketball or baseball, but there is still some rapidness in football.
I'd rather wait till 2021 and just have a little bit of a delayed season with less games and an expanded playoffs, and just hopefully it will die down by then. It obviously won't be completely gone, but if we just wait till 2021, play through January and February, and then have a March playoffs, I think that would be the smartest decision. But
it's just the time that football plays isn't great either, because it's right during flu season as well, and if you get both, that's just not great.
And knowing Roger Goodell, no offense to him, the stuff we're proposing, I doubt it's gonna happen.
But in all honesty, I'm cool if we have a season this year, because the way I see it, Patriots are gonna bomb and we'll pick up Trevor Lawrence. It'll be great.
Then you shouldn't want a season this year, Dimitri, because the likeliness of having a bunch of teams go, if it's a shortened season or something like that, the likeliness of having players with worse records and the Patriots getting a high draft pick is lower.
I mean, theoretically, but the way I see it, it's either one crappy year this year or potentially 2 crappy years. So,
I'd still take the Patriots over the Jets. So.
With their only defense being the McCourty twins and Stephon Gilmore.
And what about the Jets defense? Actually, you know what? This is a perfect transition into our next topic. Switch sides. Jamal Adams was recently traded to my personal favorite team, the Seattle Seahawks. And let's talk a little bit about. I guess we can talk about who won the trade, who lost the trade, and implications.
By far, the Seahawks were absolutely robbed in that trade.
They were robbed?
Yes! Jamal Adams' contract is almost over. They're going to get 2 years of Jamal Adams and lose 2 first-round picks consecutively.
Oof.
All right, here, let me defend that.
But the Seahawks place high anyway, so the first one.
Let me defend that. All right, Seahawks, they haven't had a draft pick before number 26 in the past 5 years. So if you think about it, it's kind of almost just a second early round. And also, if you look at their past first-round draft picks, you have Jordan Brooks, who, I kind of have high potential for. And then you have LJ Collier, who hasn't played. Rashad Penny, who's injured. I remember Paul Richardson was one, but they suck at drafting in the first round. All of their star players have come in like the second or later, like DK Metcalf. So if you're thinking about it, it's like if they had those first round draft picks, it's kind of just going to waste anyways. Also,
Alright.
Just
Like
also,
you're talking about hypotheticals, like they're going to draft a bad person. That's a huge hypothetical, first of all. Second of all, what happens if Russell Wilson gets hurt? They lose their running backs because they're constantly injury prone, and they're completely relying on their defense in a very strong division where they can easily come third or possibly fourth if Kyler Murray evolves more rapidly and with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins. I still think the Rams have some potential. I think if Jared Goff steps up, that team's still it could still be a 500 team. I don't think it's very far-fetched that the Seahawks end up having a bad record if everything goes wrong. So if say for instance they get a bunch of injuries in 2021, they have a high draft pick, they lose Jamal Adams, that's a huge loss for that team. Maybe right now it's a good trade for 1 year, but for the future it's a bad trade.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and this is from my rather limited knowledge on both the Jets and the Seahawks. The Seahawks have always been a top-tier team, but never really within the top 4, top 6. They've always been almost there, but not quite there, if that makes any sense. That's why they always have these relatively low first draft picks, and why yet they're still not winning any Super Bowls. So, I think it might help push him over a little bit if you're just adding that defense, which, by the way, he's had a lot more tackles than I thought he did, especially for a safety. I was not aware that they...
No, that's not true. I disagree with that. He does not have that many tackles. It's a lot, but it's not a crazy amount.
It's not a crazy amount, but I'd expect him to have few more interceptions, deflections,
He's a strong safety, so he's supposed to get a lot of tackles.
No, I understand the position. I'm just saying.
Keep in mind, these are only solo tackles. I didn't include whatever other tackles they're called.
Well, I know, but can I also just say this real quick? You're talking about 61 solo tackles, that's a lot. You gave up, along with your first I think 2 first rounders was a lot. You also gave up Bradley McDougald, or however you pronounce it. McDougall. He's gross. He's probably one of the most underrated strong safeties in the NFL. 52 solo tackles, 2 picks, 6 pass deflections. He's a really good strong safety. He might not be Jamal Adams, but if you're the Jets, you just got 2 more first rounders, and then you slightly downgraded that safety position. The time being.
I don't know if it's a slight downgrade, because also you have to keep in mind Bradley McDougall is turning 30 years old, and this is actually the last year in his contract, so the Jets will have to either let him go or renew his contract before.
They have 1 more year in his contract, but they have 2 first rounders that they can draft a new safety out of college with.
Alright, let's think about who they drafted besides Jamal Adams, who was 6th overall. I don't think you could trade 2 late first rounders for a 6th overall pick. First of all, let's keep that in mind. Let's think about all their first round picks in the past 5 years. Besides Sam Darnold, none of them are on the team anymore. That just shows the organization. On paper, yeah, 2 first round picks sound good, but if you really dive down into it, and they're 2 really late first round draft picks. And the Jets organization, just overall in drafting, it's just been...
The Jets just have to get lucky once, dude. If they get lucky once, they just get a superstar QB out of your draft pick.
I wouldn't. So basically what it comes down to is theoretically it could be a huge screw-up for the Seahawks, but it could very well turn out to be a massive win for them as well.
It's hard to tell unless they start drafting now.
I mean, we've seen this play out in history a lot. We've seen it play out with the Brooklyn Nets. This is the best example I could think of. They got 2 superstars with who was it? Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. And it's we made the playoffs now. We're going to try to make a championship run. And they became one of the worst teams. The Celtics got 2 or 3 first-round draft picks, and they became one of the best teams in the upcoming years. They were definitely NBA Finals competitors. The only difference was there's no like dynasties other than the Chiefs right now in the NFL that I'm like really like looking at. And I think like the NFL is definitely a sport where the Super Bowl is going to always be up for grabs. You're always going to have new contenders every year. There's always an option. There's no runaway teams like the Warriors for like the past 4 years in basketball, other than last year. So like this might be like Steven, I know you're a Seahawks fan. You're going to be happy. And you know what? I can say that the Seahawks won this trade for 1 year. I'm just not going to say that they won this trade in total. Like ESPN graded the Jets, got a better trade grade than the Seahawks. And then the Jets already have a very underrated defense. They have strong defenders on that roster, like C.J. Mosley, etc. And they have good safeties and a decent D line. So I think Bradley McDougal is like actually a decent addition, even though you're losing Jamal Adams, and then they still have 2 first-round picks to play with. Even though you claim that it's going to be a low first-rounder, you never know. 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years is still gross. You never know who you're going to get with those. It could be the next Patrick Mahomes, and it can be like another bust. But with 4 first-round draft picks in the next 2 years, you're bound to get at least one good player, and one player that can potentially be a franchise player for your team. So like,
here, let me say this, okay? The reason why I think the Seahawks made this move is Russell Wilson is like hitting his prime right now, almost, or like is at his prime right now. And if you wait another couple of years to continue drafting, Russell Wilson could get injured, Shaquille Griffin and Chris Carson are free agents next year. Like if they want to make a run for the Super Bowl and they want to go big, that's like something they have to do like right now or in the near future. And I think that's why they picked up Jamal Adams. And also like what you're saying, like yeah, they have 4 first round picks, the Jets, and it's very likely that they'll pick up one superstar out of them. But what's the point of picking up one superstar just to trade him away? What they've been doing with all their past players. Like,
because they can get 1 superstar, or they can get 4 superstars.
Or they could get none, which is what they've been doing. Like, Jamal Adams, besides him, who have they drafted that's been good?
Sam Darnold has not been a terrible quarterback.
He had
a year with a horrible team last season.
Is he a superstar? Yeah, if you want to start a team, you draft a QB in the early first round, and then you start accumulating players to build around him. And they're doing the exact opposite. They're trading away their players when Sam Darnold in a couple years.
That's not true. They're rebuilding their offensive line because their offense is about to be a major improvement.
Well, I mean,
how? Who's their number 1 wide receiver?
He was not a bust, but
they have what's his name? Jamison Crowder, who's actually had a very underrated season last year.
They gave up their wide receiver number 1, Robbie Anderson. Like, yeah. What was the thinking with that?
I mean, like, the Robbie Anderson was a good wide receiver who was ending his contract, who like wasn't putting up crazy numbers like 700 tops 800 yards a season, which is like not going to downplay that, but he's not someone that's not replaceable. The Jets can easily get new receivers, like extremely easily. It's like, honestly, I think they have good receivers. They just don't have offensive line to give the time, and they just drafted an offensive lineman, and that's a position that they're going to upgrade really fast. And like the players that they have, like Rashad Perryman and Jamison Crowder, Josh Doctson, and they're all decent. None of them are terrible receivers. Like, they're going to be good. They just need a little bit of a tweak in the offensive line, and that offense is going to be gross. The Jets are one of my most underrated teams. Their defense is above average, in my opinion. Bradley McDougal. They have C.J. Mosley, Quinnen Williams. That's 3 extremely high-level defenders. They have Sam Darnold, Le'Veon Bell, Rashad Perryman, and Jamison Crowder, who I think are really good players for skill position. If they have a slightly better offensive line, because they already drafted one, if that offensive line upgrades a little bit, that's going to be elite, especially because the offensive lineman they drafted is the blind side for Sam Darnold, which was the biggest issue for him. That drafting a left tackle was huge.
Maurice, if you just listen to what you just said there, you're like, their wide receivers are decent. You know, the offensive line now with this new pick, they're going to be decent. And if you add that all up together, you're going to get a decent team. You're not going to get a good team, which is what you said.
No, I'm saying a decent team with a lot of. What I'm trying to say is a decent team with a lot of potential. Like, they are on paper a decent a decent offense, but they can play like an elite offense. They also have an above-average defense, in my opinion. Like, it's a defense that can sneakily be one of the top defenses in the NFL. I'm not saying they will be. I'm just saying a lot of their roster is underrated because they haven't been good for a while because of their offensive line. And then look at their division. They have a weak division that they can easily probably come in second.
We understand that, but what it comes down to is a possible, in a couple years, run for a Super Bowl for the Jets, or a much more likely Super Bowl run for the Seahawks this year.
I don't think the Seahawks have that good of a chance of a Super Bowl run looking at their division.
Yeah, I don't think the Seahawks were really contenders in the first place.
Do you think Seahawks are a top 5 team?
No, they're not a top 5 team.
You literally had them in top 5 in your ranking.
I didn't have them top 5 in my ranking.
I don't think I did either.
I'm pretty sure Parker did.
I don't know.
And I think now with the Jamal trade, that only boosts their ranking.
I'm just saying that the team's good. It's just I think they jumped too much on that trade. If they gave up a 1 first-rounder in McDougal, I think that's a good trade. 2 first-rounders and no McDougal, decent trade. I just think they gave up a little too much.
Yeah, I can understand, coming from a Steelers fan and how you were able to kind of get Fitzpatrick for only a first round, and while we have to spend
honestly
rounds for Jamal Adams, that might be kind of costly, and that's something I understand.
If I'm being completely honest, first of all, when we made that trade for Fitzpatrick, I thought we gave away too much in 1 first rounder, especially when we had injured quarterback, where we were gonna need where we were supposed to get a high draft pick. I was not happy, not completely happy about that trade. I thought it was stupid to give up a first rounder. Thought second rounder tops. I didn't really think we were contenders to get him. We gave up that first rounder. It happened to be a steal because our defense was already extremely weak, which they eventually became a top 3 defense in the NFL statistically last year. So we obviously eventually ended up winning that trade. But in the moment, it looked like a bad trade. The thing is with Jamal Adams is he's already extremely good. I don't see him being much better than the potential he showed. So, and the Seahawks defense, that upgrade isn't it's obviously a good addition, but it's not like you're adding it to a weak defense where it's going to bring it up a lot. It's a decent defense that just got a little bit better.
Well, first of all, I can confidently say now that the Seahawks have the best safety duo in the league. And also, you Maurice, you did put the Seahawks at 5 on your power ranking. So.
I don't know. That was a different Maurice.
that was yesterday's Maurice.
Let's be honest, though. I don't see them winning a Super Bowl over the Chiefs or the 49ers.
Well. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Okay.
Only time will tell. Let's move on to the next slide. We spent a lot of time discussing the Seahawks. So, recently, I think this was yesterday, actually maybe Monday, but, Keenan Allen and Mike Evans, they're starting some beef. Let's see, Keenan Allen, he tweets, after I think getting the bottom half of the NFL top 100, he says, "Okay, I'm tired of biting my tongue. Cheetah, biting, the cycle for biting. Cheetah, Mike Evans, Chris Goodwin, and the list goes on, are not better receivers than me, faster than me. Every day of the week but separation. Child, please." And then Mike Evans responds, "You tagged the wrong Chris Godwin, LOL. And don't be mad at us when we ain't make the rankings or care about him. I like the confidence, but be realistic. You're not on my level, bro." So, I guess I'll open it up to you guys. Who do you think is a better wide receiver here?
All time?
Here's what all I'm going to say. I think Keenan Allen, on just skill-wise, might be better than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Definitely not Tyreek Hill. I don't know why he even mentioned him, but he's not better than Tyreek Hill. The thing is with Keenan Allen, though, he definitely on rankings doesn't deserve to be higher if he keeps getting hurt. Like, you may be better, you may have better at, like, accolades, or you may have, like, better stats, or not stats, I mean, better, like, skills.
Achievements.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But if you're gonna keep getting hurt, you can't expect to be ranked higher. That's like not playing 16 games, feeling like you have better skills than someone, but saying you're better even though you haven't shown as much as them.
Yeah, I mean, I love the Chargers, you know, but maybe if we were talking Keenan Allen of a couple of years ago, I'd say he's allowed to say this, but he's been playing like crap the past 2 years.
Yeah.
He has no reason to have this level of confidence.
And then I also have to say Keenan Allen, like, he's a hard worker. And then, like, I have respect for Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
But if you watch Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tyreek Hill in practice, they work extremely hard to be where they are. I feel like it was completely disrespectful to even mention that he thinks he's better than Tyreek Hill, because Tyreek Hill is not only the fastest receiver in the league, has incredible hands, he puts up the numbers to show for it, and he works his butt off to be a top 5 wide receiver. I'd never see Keenan Allen working as hard as some of these other receivers. And, like, while he may be a bit better, like, he may think he's better, and he may even have better hands or be faster or whatever, if he keeps getting hurt and doesn't show that he's better, he doesn't have the right to claim that he's better.
Yeah.
For the most part, I have to agree, but I feel like, I don't know, Keenan Allen, you know, obviously a lot of his down achievements are because of his injuries. And if you think about, like, his coach and, you know, no hate to Phillip Rivers, but he's also starting to age. I mean, I love watching Keenan Allen play. I think he's behind Devontae Adams. He's probably the shiftiest wide receiver out there. But, you know, I feel like by calling these players out, you're kind of you're kind of impersonating Michael Thomas, who I'm not a huge fan of when he, you know, sparked the whole best wide receiver debate, and even now how he's in the 99 club, I'm not like the biggest fan of that. And I think, you know, just stay humble and, you know, work hard, but don't compare yourself to others, because, like, in reality, the only competitor and the person you're competing against is yourself. And, like, I think doing this is just kind of unnecessary.
Yeah, when I saw it the first time, I was actually kind of surprised, because from, you know, what I know about him, from what I've read about him, watching him, he's kind of like a cool guy, but it just doesn't really seem like his typical behavior.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. What did he stunt? You know, he feels like people have starting to forget him a little bit because he hasn't played, so he wants some, I don't know, do an Antonio Brown or controversy. So I don't know. But, you know,
I mean, the thing is with Keenan Allen, ever since he tore his ACL, he's never been the same player. And I'm not saying he's been bad, because he has been good, but he has, like, between, like, with Madden and stuff, he gets disrespected and he gets underrated a lot. But I just don't think it was right of him to say he's better than players that he hasn't shown he's better than right now, especially last season.
Yeah.
I think the tweet would have been fine if he didn't mention any names. I think it would have been fine if he said, "Tired of cutting my tongue. Some players are faster than me, but, you know, no one can touch me in separation." But the fact that he had to call out, you know, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, it was unnecessary.
All right, I'm gonna pull up some stats to see where he's ranked, but you guys can continue talking.
I mean, I just want to compare Keenan Allen to other players, like, not with, like, their on-field actions, but their off-field actions. I personally, for fantasy and stat-wise, I think Michael Thomas is the best receiver in the NFL. He just showed it last year, with stat-wise at least, with his receptions and stuff. But someone I want to look at is Julio Jones, because he is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. Yeah. I always thought he was always second, because I thought he was slightly worse than Antonio Brown as a Steelers fan. And then I thought he was slightly worse than Michael Thomas now. But he's always been elite. and he never says
he's
anything.
never
He never says,
Yeah.
"Oh, you're ranking these people over me. You're ranking this person over me." He doesn't. He goes on the field and he shows up every single week. He performs well and doesn't say a word. And if Keenan Allen was ranked lower than these players and was putting up the numbers as Julio Jones, understandable. But Julio Jones could be ranked lower than these people and he wouldn't say anything because he doesn't.
That's why he's
That's
my number
because
one wide receiver.
he doesn't need to say anything to get recognized as a really good receiver.
Yeah.
Everyone knows
Julio
he's
Jones
ridiculous.
could complain about not being ranked number one because a lot of players don't rank him number. A lot of people don't rank him never ranked him number one because there's always been a player that could be considered slightly better. Like for a while, it was Antonio Brown, and then it's Michael Thomas. There's other players, but like he doesn't complain. He just works hard, and when people recognize him, he's like, "Cool, thanks." And if no one doesn't recognize him, he does not.
Yeah.
There's a reason that other players who are considered first have come and gone, and he's still there.
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
He's consistent.
Yeah,
But-
and not only is he consistent, he's consistently a competitor for the best wide receiver in the league. And he may not get number one wide receiver like recognition from half NFL fans, more than half of the NFL fans. He doesn't complain like Keenan Allen is. Like, just don't complain. And like that's if Keenan Allen, I feel like I lost respect for him when he did this. I have to.
Has Keenan Allen complained in the past, or is this like a one-time thing?
No, he doesn't really. He never really complained before.
I don't remember. He did last year. He said he was like, really. He was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna buy Madden. They're disrespecting my route running and stuff like that." And like minor stats, and I was like, "Okay, buddy. Like, you're good, and you were disrespected a little bit, but just prove them wrong during the season and upgrade your player.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go to social media about it." And like, I found that a bit understandable, but this I completely lost. I lost a lot of respect. Not completely, but definitely lost a lot of respect.
So I did some research, and just to give you some context, Keenan Allen, this year he was ranked number 77 in the top 100, and the year before this, so 2019, he was ranked 38. So from 38 to 77, that is quite a quite big downgrade. And some wide receivers that are ranked higher than him are Larry Fitzgerald, Tyler Lockett, Jarvis Landry, OBJ, Devontae Adams, and Stephon Diggs. So if anyone wants to comment on that, or we can just move on.
I think it's move on.
Yeah.
It's basically him. He's starting to become a little relevant, and he's just starting to lash out now, which is not something fun to witness. But it's somewhat negative. NFL players are kind of prideful, and when they start losing their edge, and if they can't really, and especially if the season looks like it's not going to happen, or it happened less than he'd like to show off, and it's not completely surprising that he's decided to go to social media about it.
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Let's move on. Yep.
Steven.
All right. So for this week's, I guess, personalized or rankings, we're focusing on defenses. So for me, I think defense this year is Ravens, with their star player being Marlon Humphrey. And that's because, last year they already had a solid defense, top 5. And I think with the addition of Calais Campbell, I'm not really... Forgive me for pronouncing his last name wrong, but...
Yeah, right. Campbell.
Yeah, I think, for the addition of that, that really steps up their D-line, and it should make them one of the top defenses in the league. Number 2, at this time when I created this list, which was a couple of days ago, I was not unaware of the COVID opt-outs, but I think Patriots had a top 3 defense last year as well. And before all their players started opting out, Stephen Gilmore is definitely the king of the defense. But because of all of their opt-outs, I'll probably have to place them lower. Bills, I think, have a really pretty underrated defense with Tre'Davious White, who is also, I think, snubbed this year on the top 100s list. He's definitely a top 5 cornerback, and so I think that's pretty self-explanatory. 49ers, they're obviously one of the top defenses in the league, especially adding Nick Bosa. Might I say, Nick Bosa, as a rookie, I think in the NFL top 100 he was ranked 14th. So if you just think about that, this dude is like a star. He's like crazy. And then for number 5, rounded off with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Solid defense. A lot of also underrated guys. Like half of their defense, I've never heard of them, but still they managed to work very well together. So I think next year they'll still continue to be one of the top defenses. And then for my sleeper, I have to be biased to go with my own team, the Seattle Seahawks. Just I think a lot of their team is underrated, and with the addition of Jamal Adams, which will only boost it. And right now that ADP is 251, but I could see it going up a little bit because of Jamal Adams. But I think 251 is usually undrafted in most leagues. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you said it, and I hate to say it, and if anyone else tries to say it, we're going to have a problem. Patriots have lost their spot of defensive glory. I mean, even without the Corona opt-out, I still think, especially with who did they lose? They lost they lost White Jesus, but
Oh my God.
I think that I think, but especially with the opt-outs, I mean, they're losing half what makes them a star defense. All they've got now are the McCourty twins and Stephon Gilmore, which is not enough to keep them in the top 5 defense.
F.
Alrighty.
I would rank the 49ers a bit higher, honestly.
Yeah.
They had an incredibly solid defense. I would rank them higher than the Bills for sure.
And the only guy they really got rid of was DeForest Buckner, and they replaced him with the draft pick. So, it's...
But then they get a wide receiver from the draft?
I think they had... I'm not sure whether their D tackle was the first or second draft pick, but either way, the guy was... I forget his name, but he was actually pretty good.
Yeah, well,
yeah, I don't know. I just no hate to Richard Sherman, but he's kind of getting old, and he has a past of injuries. So I would not be surprised if he has a little regression this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Bosa will definitely continue to do his thing.
Dimitri, the person you were thinking of is Javon Kinlaw.
All right, but yeah, if you watch some of his clips, some of his college stuff, he was pretty good. Especially as DeForest Buckner was not the star of their D-line, I definitely think that they're going to do at least as good, if not better.
I mean, don't have to be a star of the. He might not be the star of the D-line, but I think 7.5 sacks for a defensive tackle is extremely good. So.
No. He's you won't be hearing me say he's not good. He's definitely a great D tackle. I just think that even if they didn't pick up a new draft pick, their D-line would have been solid enough. But I think especially because they did, they shouldn't be considered that much worse.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, moving on.
No one has anything else. Let's move on. Yep.
Hey, it's me. Okay, so number 1 was before the coronavirus controversy. I put the Patriots because they played an insane defense this past season, so I just... Okay. Well, I saw them just keep going up for the defense. I thought they were going to be like the Bears a few years back with no offense but an insane defense. Okay. Second, I put the 49ers because with Nick Bosa, they're just a completely stacked defense. And number 3, I put the Steelers, but I put TJ Watt as the star player for the Steelers. I just think he would perform a tiny bit better than Minka, and it's not like Minka's bad or anything. I just think that TJ Watt's better.
TJ Watt's the best, definitely the best defender on the Steelers.
Yeah.
If not the best defender in the NFL last year. He definitely was snubbed as the player of the year, but that's a different conversation.
Okay. Number 4, I put the Ravens. Although the Ravens did play really well last year with their defense, I just don't see them playing as well because in the playoffs, they kind of got rolled by one player, Derrick Henry.
Well, so did the Patriots. I mean, their defense.
That's fair.
Too. He's not a player. He's a god.
He's not a player. He's a bust.
Just one I want to throw out there on the Ravens because they're in my top 5, so I didn't disrespect them or anything. But the thing is with their defense is it's not like the most consistent defense across the board, and the reason they appeared to be so good last year is because their offense had a lot of field time. If you have the NFL's best offensive player last year, like we could see it. You could see it with the Chiefs too. Like just because like their defense doesn't give up a lot of points doesn't mean it's an elite defense. It just means like they're good, but that also it's just because their offense is they're driving to the end zone every time and they're not letting the other team get the ball too often.
Yeah.
So if the Ravens' offense doesn't perform that well, their defense isn't going to perform that well either.
Especially because the Ravens' offense is a running one, so they really run a
If
lot
you're
of time
betting
off the
against
clock.
Lamar Jackson, I think that's a bad bet in general.
Yeah.
What?
The whole premise of that is if Lamar Jackson starts screwing up, then the Ravens defense won't do as well. But I think
No, I'm just saying if the Ravens defense has less possession time than their offense, then like if their offense has less possession time, like that could mean they're playing better and Lamar Jackson is getting one-play drives every time and their defense is just on the field more, giving up more points. Like all I'm saying was that the reason they performed so well, the same thing applied to the Patriots last year because, as we know, Tom Brady likes to dump the ball off, and it works because it leads to more possession time. Like the reason the Patriots they were giving up 7 points a game because they didn't allow the other team to have the ball ever, and when they did have the ball, they were getting turnovers quite often. So like the Ravens, their defense is good. They're top 5. I'm just saying, definitely, Steven, I don't think they're number 1.
Yeah, I don't either.
Maurice, you say that, but if you can tell me what a part of the Ravens defense that is lacking, I mean, they've got
They're middle linebackers. They don't have strong middle linebackers.
No, they have decent. They re-picked up Matt Judon.
Name their middle linebackers, Dimitri. Name them.
No, they don't have any good middle linebackers, but they have decent other linebacker. They picked up who was that guy from the draft?
Patrick Queen, right?
Yeah.
From the LSU.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's not for a middle linebacker. He definitely picks up some of the slack in the linebackers position. They have a great D-line. They have a fantastic deep. They've got great cornerback. They've got Earl Thomas. I mean, I'll go into this in a little more detail when it's my turn, but I'm just saying that your premise that the only reason they played so well is because they didn't have that much time in the field is a little ridiculous.
No, I'm not saying that's the only reason they played well. They're top 5 defense. I'm just saying they're not. First of all, their players, their defense is the players. They're not number 1, and I'm just saying when it comes to points, the reason that they're gonna put up top 5 fantasy points is because they're not gonna have defensive possession time. Like I said before, I'm not trying to put the Ravens defense down. I'm just saying I'm just trying to give them a little bit of a hit because I feel like they get a little bit overrated, just a tiny bit.
All right, let's let Parker finish.
Okay. So number 5, I put the Bills. I just don't see them higher than 5, even though they have a really solid defense. Coming into this next season, I don't think their offense is going to be able to do much. So I don't really see the Bills' defense being an outstanding defense either. I just don't see them as an outstanding team. I'm not a believer in the Bills. I'm just not.
You're not a fan of the Bills Mafia?
No.
All right. And,
Before we move on,
Oh,
and I say this very hesitantly, especially with Maurice on the line, I don't think the Steelers are top 5 defense. And
all right. Let's get into that.
Okay, get into that when you're on your top 5.
Dimitri, you know what? Dimitri, in the world, there's just stupid people, and then there's people like you who stand alone way below the stupid people. So let's hear what you got.
Hear me out for a second, all right?
Can we hear you at your top 5 list?
Steelers.
Yeah, let's do this one. Let's let Parker finish his fantasy pick before.
I
we
don't
move
want
on
to be
your
moved
list.
in with you there.
All right, fine.
All right, let him finish.
Okay. So my sleeper are the Rams defense. I am a Rams fan, but you have to admit their defense is really stacked. And if they get the synergy, I think they are a top 5 contender for defense. But they're lacking a lot in synergy because they had, on paper, one of the best defenses last year. Even though they didn't lose some players, they just sucked anyway.
I don't know. I think they're kind of like the Browns' offense, except defense. They have a bunch of superstar players, but they can't really, put something together.
I'm sorry to say this, Parker, but the Rams' defense, other than Aaron Donald, is where defenders go to fall off. When Marcus Peters was there, Marcus Peters was like elite quarterback, goes to the Rams, trash season, goes to the Ravens, elite again. Like,
it's just whenever they go onto the Rams, they suck.
Aaron Donald, Aqib Talib, just like, bruh.
They have a lot of elite players. It's just they don't do anything for some reason.
Yeah. They have
the potential.
They have a bad defensive coordinator. Like, let me just say this: Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the league. He's not a defensive coach at all.
Yeah, can you put me at the Rams coach? Yeah, I can agree with that. But if they get a better defensive coordinator, I think they can easily be a top 5 defense.
Do they have a new coordinator?
No, they don't. You never know. Maybe he gets coronavirus.
Oh, God.
He's pretty young. I don't think he's that much of a risk.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on, and I hope it's Dimitri's.
I'm going to make this real quick so we don't waste too much time on it. The only reason I don't think it's their top 5 is because, in my opinion, the main reason the Steelers' defense did so well last year was because... Yeah, go back for a second.
How could he put the Saints as top 5, my guy?
No, they're top 5. They're definitely top 5.
All right, I'll be real.
They're not definitely top 5.
The main thing that the Steelers defense was so good is that they got a ridiculous amount of turnovers. Okay.
Yeah, but how did they do that?
That's a big part of defense, Dimitri.
But it's much more than can be normally expected from their level of defense. And while they
definitely not true there.
It is true. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers up. But
it's like saying the only reason Tom Brady was good because his pass completion was insane.
No, but that's like saying the only reason that Tom Brady is good is because one year he had a pass completion that's much better than it was every other year. I don't think it's repeatable. I don't think that they can get the same amount of turnovers.
All right, just go so I can rest.
You could say the same with the Patriots defense then.
What?
You could say the same with the Patriots defense. Didn't they really suck the year before?
I'm not saying that teams can't change from year to year, but I'm saying that the Steelers' defense is practically the exact same. I mean, I think they replaced one guy, but
I mean, sometimes not changing is better than changing. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like Brady for entire decade.
I'm not. You guys are misunderstanding me here. I'm not saying that you have to change to be good.
Dimitri, finish, because your list is whack. So just hurry up.
They were much better last year than they should have been, and I don't think it's repeatable, especially with the exact same team.
All right. Oh, what happened?
All right, my list. Fun. You guys, for some reason, seem to think much lesser. So number 1 for me is the Ravens. You guys seem to think that's somewhat ridiculous, but I mean, I can't see a single besides a middle linebacker. Which, if you have a decent enough linebacking core, it can be worked around. I don't see a big enough. I see no gaps in their defense. Their D line is great. Their linebackers are great. I mean, their
D line is not that good.
Starting cornerback is Jimmy Smith, who is good. He's great in some years, but I mean, I don't see any holes. Everyone else, I mean, the 49ers...
I can see holes, Dimitri. They have one good defensive lineman, Brandon Williams, and Derek Wolf are in here.
Did you say you let him finish?
Yeah, I see holes. Derrick Henry. He made one.
Derrick Henry is like I said, he's not a player. He's a god. Anyway, down the 49ers. 49ers were great defensively last year. They lost DeForest Buckner, but they got a decent draft pick in return. I think that they are. I mean, everyone else said it. They're set for great things defensively. Bills, I think, are massively underrated. Bills, I mean, their offense wasn't that great last year. They had a pretty good run game, but I think what really gave them the season last year was their defense, and I think especially Trey White. I mean, I think they're also scheduled for comes from serious defensive success. Now, the one that the rest of you guys are going to be yelling at me for a while, the Saints. No one else really put them up there. I think that I can't think of another team. I mean, defensively, that should be on there instead of them. I think that the Steelers, defensive statistically and in 2020, I think the Saints are better than them. I think that the Patriots, especially with their fall off, are definitely worse than them. But I can't think of another team that should be higher on that list than the Saints.
Dimitri, I have to say this. Like, Steelers, first of all, they should be there. And if that means kicking off the Patriots or the Saints, that should happen. But I'm not going to get mad that you put the Saints in top 5 because I think their defense is extremely underrated. So I'm not going to get mad at you there.
So you're interrupting me to agree with me.
No, because you said it earlier, oh, you guys are going to yell at me. I'm definitely not yelling at you because the Saints are extremely underrated.
Alrighty. I'll take it, I'll take it. And then, of course, number 5, as much as I'd love to put them higher and as much as, without Corona, they should be higher, they've got great coaching. They've got great chemistry, synergy. I think that if not for the Corona, we'd be much higher, but I definitely still think they're top 5. And, of course, my sleeper,
Is
they're
the worst
actually
pick in the year.
Well, here's the only issue, the only thing that you guys can say about my sleeper is that they're already a little too high to be considered a sleeper.
What's its ADP?
It's like 137.
What?
Yeah.
That's ridiculously high for a
Dude,
defense.
they should be so much lower.
No, they shouldn't. No, they shouldn't. The reason that their defense generally is like wasn't good last year is because Derwin James was hurt. With Derwin James and Joey Bosa and Ingram the third, they're gross. They're definitely.
I mean, they're not a top 5 and they're not a top 10, but I definitely think top 50.
No, they're top 10. I think they might be top 10.
Well, I'm
borderline. They're borderline.
really massively underrate the Chargers just because they generally suck as a team, but I think that their defense is good enough to be considered at least a sleeper pick.
This is just the one reason I don't know if the Chargers are going to be the best sleeper pick. They do play the Chiefs twice.
Yeah. That's
They play the Broncos twice. Broncos have an extremely underrated offense.
Yeah.
Sutton, their offense is like really
You
good.
could say the same about the Seahawks and the Rams.
Hold on. I'm just going to say, like, the Chargers have probably the best offensive division in the NFL. Like, arguably.
The Rams, Seahawks.
Come on.
Both, dude, they literally 49ers, Seahawks, Rams, Cardinals.
What gives you the
division is
impression
definitely the hardest division.
such a good offense? Because their offense isn't that good.
The Rams
No, wait,
offense
I take the
pretty good.
NFC South. NFC South definitely has a better offense.
No, that's definitely up there. I didn't say that they are. I said they're arguably.
Oh, arguably, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna argue against it.
Yeah, you can. I don't mind. I'm not going to defend them. I don't really care.
I don't see the Chargers.
No, that's a fair point. They're decent defense. They're a pretty good defense, but they're kind of screwed with the offense around them. Which
The Saints haven't been doing well on defense for the past few years. Their offense has been kind of carrying them, and they've been getting into really high-scoring games every game.
I don't.
That's
think
not true.
Badly, I just think that they've been completely, outshined by the offense. With the.
It's hard not to be outshined by the offense.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, Parker, if you look at any defensive rankings, the Saints are always top 10, sometimes even top 5. Like Marshawn Lattimore, Cam Jordan, like they have Eli Apple. They have some like ridiculously good players on that defense. They are definitely outshined by their offense too. So I don't know if they're top 4. I think that might be a little high, but like they're definitely good. I don't blame him for putting them that high, but I think it's a bit of a stretch.
All right.
Were you ready to move on to Maurice and have him wrap it up?
Yeah. Bubba.
Alright, let me just say. First thing I'm going to say, I am biased. I might be one of the most biased people you'll ever meet.
Yeah,
like, I'm a
that's
Steelers fan.
incredibly
Ravens at 5, Steelers at 1. Like, criticize me all you want. I don't care. I will defend it. The reason I'm putting the Steelers at 1, across that defense, might be one of the most consistently good defenses in the NFL. And here's why. They are, like, look at their defensive line. Arguably the best, if not the second best defensive line in the NFL. They have Stephon Tuitt, gross. Cam Hayward, gross. TJ Watt, gross. Bud Dupree, gross. I don't think I need to say much more than that. Then you move on to the linebackers. Vince Williams, gross. Devin Bush, gross. That's two strong middle linebackers, and next year they'll have Ryan Shazier. I'm not going to say he'll be amazing, but for now, Vince Williams is a really good one. Devin Bush did amazing his rookie year. Extremely underrated rookie season. Cornerbacks. Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson, Mike Hilton, and Justin Lane. Three of the most underrated cornerbacks in the NFL. Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson had similar ratings to Stephon Gilmore when it came to being a cornerback. Actually, keep in mind, Steven Nelson had less targets than Stephon Gilmore, and that's why he didn't get that many interceptions, and he was severely underrated. He didn't allow any separation, which was why he was extremely disgusting. But I just think that's a very underrated position. Terrell Edmonds, really good in tackles for a strong safety. Like, talking about Jamal Adams has 61 solo tackles. Terrell Edmonds has 71, and people act like he's terrible just because he doesn't have
tackles.
71 solo tackles. Yes. So
What's
don't
his name
sleep
again?
on Terrell Edmonds and Minka Fitzpatrick. Don't need to say much. So that's my reasoning. Extremely solid defense. Not a single hole in that whole defense. And that's why they're the best. 49ers would have put them at 1. I thought the loss of DeForest Buckner was a very underrated one. Even though they replaced him with a rookie, I just think DeForest Buckner, after playing 4 years in the NFL, is extremely good. I think he made that defense a lot better, and that's why they're number 2. Again, they could have been at number 1. They might even still be number 1. I'm biased, but DeForest Buckner was a loss for me, even though they definitely replaced him well. So they could definitely be better. Bills, Trey White, most underrated defensive player in the NFL last season. Just look at the numbers, look at everything. Micah Hyde, extremely underrated free safety. Tremaine Edmonds on the come up, going to be disgusting, underrated. Ed Oliver, underrated. The whole defense is underrated. They do have some holes, so I'm not going to put them higher than 3. Definitely going to be good. Patriots 4, can't have a defensive season like they did last year and not be top 5. The losses because of COVID definitely lowered them a lot. I think they could have been number 1 or number 2. Put them down to number 4. Ravens 5, again, because I would not have put them top 10 if this wasn't fantasy, because their offense gives them such good time on the field. They have 4 really big name players. They got Marcus Peters, what's his name now? I'm forgetting it. Earl Thomas, Calais Campbell, and Marlon Humphrey. Not going to sleep on them. Put them top 5 out of respect. Can't put them higher than that because I'm a Steelers fan. And then sleeper, Cowboys. Cowboys might not have the best defense. Look at the division. That's 6 easy wins where they shouldn't allow more than 10 points. Defense is already gross. ADP 219. Not saying that they're amazing. Just saying that 219 is way too low of a draft position. DeMarcus Lawrence is gross. Crazy secondary. They play the Redskins twice a year. They play the Giants twice a year. They play the Eagles, who have a terrible offense, twice a year. I don't think I need to say more than that.
Who's in their secondary?
Who's in their secondary? Let me look. I know they had Byron Jones, but I know they lost him, so. I know they have a decent secondary, so. Let me just pull it up real quick. I'm forgetting now. I mean, they have Ha-Ha, Clinton Dix, Xavier Woods, Trevon Diggs. They're actually pretty good. Very underrated. Not saying they're really good. Their defensive line's really where they have it. They have Crawford, Lawrence, McCoy, Poe, and then Van Der Esch in the middle linebacker position. Not saying that they're amazing, just saying with the 3 other teams and the 3 horrible offenses in their division, that's 6 games where they shouldn't allow more than 14 points. So yeah.
I think you'd be surprised.
You're underrating them a lot, though.
Dak Prescott at times.
What?
I think you'd be surprised about Dak Prescott's ability to whiff games at times, but that's a different story.
I mean, I'm not saying anything about their offense. I'm just saying that they could lose those games against their division, and they shouldn't allow more than 14 points.
Well, if they're gonna lose, that means the team probably has more than. It's possible that the team has more than 14 points.
I'm just saying they shouldn't.
I
They
think
might.
you're underrating the Eagles' offense.
Oh yeah, I forgot the Eagles are in that division.
Yeah, the reason I still say they should not have more than 14 points, the Eagles have no offense other than the quarterback position. Carson Wentz way too injury
Zach
prone.
Ertz?
All their receivers are terrible. Nelson Aguilar and Alshon Jeffries aren't itchy.
Zach Ertz.
Running backs aren't strong either. Like, who's their running back now?
Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders is
He's
not
kind of
that
underrated. He's kind of underrated.
good. No, he's not.
Being
bro.
rated
He's
dead last is
terrible.
also underrated.
And what about Zach
You're gonna
Ertz?
sit here and tell me Miles Sanders is a good running back, and that's why the
You're
Cowboys
forgetting
aren't.
about Zach Ertz 100%.
Yeah, Zach Ertz.
He can score over 14 points on his own.
Well,
Bro, I know Zach Ertz is good, but like, okay, who's gonna score the rest of the points? The running back who you claim is so good? Like, no.
Dude,
Like, he's
they're gonna
not
have to
good.
triple guard Zach Ertz. They're just gonna have wide receivers wide
Yeah,
open.
they should triple guard Zach Ertz because they have no one else to guard.
That's
No,
fair.
I think they drafted a wide receiver this year, right?
No.
If they don't drop the ball, the receivers are fine.
well,
Dude, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Alshon Jeffrey has a bad completion percentage.
Didn't the Eagles make the playoffs last year though?
I mean, yeah, but they shouldn't have.
They downgraded. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying that the Eagles. Okay, fine. You want me to take that back? They have two teams in their division that they shouldn't let score 10 points, like the Giants and the Redskins. Come on, like.
That's fair, but you.
I mean, the
just don't
Giants now have
underestimate.
Saquon with a decent line. That's kind of.
Actually,
Wow.
Nate Solder is taking the year off. So
Well, forget Nate Solder. Nate Solder was shit as soon as he left the Patriots. But they got, what's his name, from the
Biased
draft.
much?
I'm just saying, it's not. I don't think it's the easiest league. The easiest. Actually, they're no longer the Redskins anymore. They're just the Washington
Football
The
team.
football team. Yeah. I mean, you guys can talk to me about the Steelers now. I think I said enough with how consistent their defense was. They don't have a single hole there. Like, you could try to find one. It's going to take a while.
Dimitri,
I
your
can wait.
defense is gross, and you just can't say otherwise.
What?
I don't know. Maurice,
The
it seems
Steelers'
like on
defense is
paper-
nasty.
Seems like on paper the Steelers should just be the best team in the league.
What?
Wait,
Their
No,
offense
their
is
offense is
terrible.
trash.
Listen, I don't think, besides TJ Watt, I really can't think of any other players who are on the Steelers who are better than players on these.
Wow.
on the-
Dimitri, in your time, you were talking about how you were sad you couldn't put Minka Fitzpatrick.
What?
I can't think of another defensive player on the Steelers. Minka Fitzpatrick is sitting here looking like, what?
I'm not saying you can't name them. They have good defensive players, but they don't have. I mean, they have Minka, they have TJ Watt, and who else are great?
Joe Hayden.
No, he's not.
Joe Hayden had 5 picks last year.
He's not bad. He's
Someone's
pretty
a
good.
bit
He's not
angry.
excellent. He's not Marcus.
What do you
Peters.
mean?
You're telling me that the Steelers are the best defense in the league, and I'm telling you,
You're telling me the Ravens are the best defense in the league.
the Ravens.
No.
They're both wrong. The 49ers are the best.
Nah.
49ers are great at stopping a run, but they're, beyond that, I wouldn't give them too much credit.
Can I just say something? Can I just say
You
something?
said you started out by saying that you were biased. And I admit that you are probably biased. All right.
First of all, can I say something?
Sure.
This is fantasy ratings, right?
Yeah.
Turnovers.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at the stats between Stephon Gilmore, who's the best quarterback in the league, and Joe Hayden. Fantasy points: Joe Hayden put up more per game in totality. He had more tackles, had one less interception, but had a forced fumble, and the fumble recovered. He put up 159 fantasy points last year. Stephon put up 149. He put up more per game, more per snap, and he was ranked 17th among cornerbacks, while Stephon Gilmore was ranked 24th.
In all honesty, that you think Joe Hayden is better than Marcus Peters.
Yeah.
Well, then you are welcome to your delusions. All right, I'm not gonna.
I just want to say this, buddy. Like, Marcus Peters, like, he's good, and I'm not gonna like put him down. He doesn't get tackles, first of all. He doesn't. He had less passes defended than Joe Hayden. Joe Hayden defended more passes. He got 20 more tackles, had the same amount of interceptions, and one more forced fumble. He also put up more fantasy points than him. His stats were significantly better. The only thing that's different is that Marcus Gilmore got a couple more pick sixes, and he still didn't put up as many fantasy points as Joe Hayden. So I don't know, like, what your impression is that Marcus Peters is better than Joe Hayden, especially if he's the number 2 cornerback on that team behind Marlon Humphrey. So, like, you're going to tell me that someone who's guarding the second best receiver on every NFL team, rather than someone who's defending the best receiver on every NFL team and putting up better numbers, is better than him? Sure.
You just said. I mean, Joe Hayden is comparable. I think he's worse, but at the very least, he's comparable to the second best cornerback on the Ravens. All right, I'm
not saying that. I just compared him to the best cornerback in the NFL, and he had better, if not equal, fantasy statistics. He had better fantasy statistics than the best quarterback in the NFL.
We're comparing him to Stephon Gilmore. We're comparing him to the
Ravens. I just did compare him to Stephon Gilmore, and he had better stats.
No, I understand that. But you also have to understand, if we're just comparing Joe Hayden and Stephon Gilmore, that there is a great deal more that goes into it than just their stats.
Hold on, Dimitri. The reason I'm talking about Joe Hayden right now is not because I'm saying he's the best cornerback in the NFL. It's because you just said he's not a name. He's not good. Listen, you just said he's not a good cornerback before that. You said there's no one good on the Steelers defense other than Minka and Pigeon.
He's not a best in the league.
I never said he was the best in the league.
You are implying it by saying he's the best defense in the league. I asked who are named people who would make your defense the best in the league. You gave me
name four people. I'll name the 4 Pro Bowlers: Cam Hayward, T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick, and Joe Hayden. There you go. 4 Pro Bowl players.
And T.J. Watt, I can admit that they are some of the, if not best players of their positions in the league. The other ones aren't. Period.
All right. Why did I also add? This is just fantasy perspective. The Ravens, on paper, have the easiest fantasy schedule next year. Easiest NFL schedule next year. So that's also something to consider when we're talking about the defensive fantasy rating.
Yeah, they are going against the Steelers' offense.
Well, Steven, I just have to say that I'm biased. I said that earlier. Look.
Dude, still, the Steelers' defense has to play against the Ravens.
Okay.
This is better.
Okay. You know what? I'm just gonna leave it there because I have to go right now.
Okay.
But say what you will. I think I said enough about the Steelers. I said I'm biased. I explained enough why they should be top 5, nevertheless number 1, or number 1, nevertheless top 5. Dimitri, I don't know what you were thinking, not putting them top 5. I'm just gonna end it on that. And I have to go, so I'm gonna leave.
So,
all right. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll hopefully see you soon for episode 4. Take care.